Hey everybody, welcome to Autodesk Inventor online module web series. So these videos are intended to serve as extra material for your first year courses at McMaster University, whether you're in Engineering 1 or the iBiomed program. The hope is that we can provide some helpful tips and tricks for using Inventor in a way that's more directly applicable to your course, whether it be assignments, projects, or whatnot. Let's get started. So this is the version that is installed on campus computers at McMaster for 2018-19. You're free to install whatever version you want on your own computer, your own device. I do recommend just stick to the one that we use. I should also note we're not even going to build anything in this video. This video is just to get comfortable working with the interface, the buttons, the toolbars, the windows, and all that stuff, which, as you're going to see in a minute, can get very, very cluttered. Now, there's a number of different file types in Inventor. So there's part files, okay? So that's the stuff that we're going to start with. A little bit later on, we get to assemblies, which is just a bunch of parts put together. Creating drawings, so that's like drawings that have dimensions and whatnot. And then presentations. Okay, so let's go ahead and create a new part file. Now, there's a number of different ways to do that. So on the main screen here, you can just click the part button and it'll open up a file for you. We can do that another identical ways as well. So there's the new file in the launch menu. In the application menu, it allows us to create our new parts. My personal favorite, for no good reason whatsoever, is the quick access toolbar. In any one of those cases, simply pressing the part file is going to create a new file for you. So in this case, the file name is part 1. I'm going to close this because there's another thing I want to touch on very quickly, and that is templates. Depending on working on assignment or whatever, you may be required to use millimeters or maybe inches. So it's important to work from the correct template. And there's a few ways to access those templates. On the main screen, this is kind of the basic window, but we can scroll over or tab over to the advanced window, which will allow us to create a new file from different templates. If we want to work with inches, expand the English folder, scroll down to the standard bracket in.ipt. Okay, so IPT is that's the file extension for part files. We'll get to other ones a little bit later. So double clicking on standard in.ipt is going to create, in this case, part 2. So that's a new file. But I don't want to work with inches. I'm going to cut out and minimize that folder and expand the metric tab or metric folder. Scroll down to standard bracket for millimeters, .ipt. Double click on that one and we're off to the races. Okay. So I'm going to exit again because there's one other thing I want to touch on. This is a kind of a clunky way of navigating the different templates. There's a much easier way to do that. In the quick access toolbar, rather than opening up the window, just click the little white box, and that's going to open up the create new file dialog box. Same thing as what we saw before. There's the templates for English parts, so standard in.ipt, and there's templates for metric. It just visually it's a little bit nicer to look at. I'm already previously working in millimeters, so I don't need to create it from a template. I can just select new part, and then we're good to go. One thing very quickly, not to go on too much of a tangent, I hate this gray gradient background, especially because parts in Inventor are modeled in gray. So gray on gray just doesn't look very nice. If you want better contrast, you don't have to do this, my preference. If you click on the File tab, scroll down to Options, there's all kinds of options you can do, none of which are relevant for this discussion. If you click on the Colors tab, and then you can change whatever color scheme you want. I like Presentation one color. It just makes it a nice white background, very easy to work with. Again, don't have to do it, completely up to you. Okay, so we see a host of stuff here on the screen. A lot of these options, again, we don't really venture down too far into. I want to take some time just to navigate the window so that we're comfortable with what we're working in. The main pieces to the user interface is, for one, the main window. So this is where your parts are going to show on the screen. Okay, right now it's just big open space, can't see anything. There is also a coordinate system. Okay, this is going to become very relevant when it comes to modeling parts. And then there's also a couple of navigation tools. This one is called the View Cube, and it basically allows us to orient our part in specific predefined orientations. And then there's the navigation bar, which allows us to pan, zoom, rotate. Now, the main toolbar is where a lot of the action is. So this consists of a number of tabs: creating a 3D model, sketch, inspect, tools, manage, etc., etc. You'll notice when I went from tab to tab, a number of different panels opened up. So when we have 3D model, it allows us to create a sketch. So there's a sketch panel, there's a create panel, a modify panel, etc., etc. Underneath the sketch tab, again, we've got a sketch panel, a create, modify pattern. Now these are grayed out because we can't access them right now. It'll become more relevant in the next video. Other pieces that are good to know is on the left side of the screen is what's called the browser. So the browser is basically your part history. As we build up parts, we're going to see this area start to populate with information, which is helpful for editing, deleting, and modifying things. Right now, we've got one part open, and then we haven't really created anything, so there's nothing there. It'll get interesting pretty soon, I promise. Other stuff that's relevant is down here is our Documents tab. I mean, you may want to have more parts up and running at the same time, so that allows you to kind of scroll between the different parts. And there's also the status bar. The status bar basically tells us the next action that any particular command requires us to do. Okay, so I'm on a PC with a fairly large monitor, so I've got a whole slew of panels open, which you might not have. Or when you're modeling, some things on your screen might disappear. So if you scroll over to the View tab, you can select on the user interface. So for example, let's say you accidentally X'd out the navigation bar. You can click on the user interface and make it come back. I've had students accidentally delete the browser. Well, you can go over to the user interface and bring it back. In terms of the buttons, if you're working on a small laptop like a Surface or something like that, where you can't see everything, simply pull over to this pull tab to show additional panels and select the ones that are most relevant to you. As you can see, there's all kinds that aren't selected simply because there's not enough space, and quite frankly, they're not relevant for our application. This is just relevant if you're dealing with a smaller screen or if you accidentally hide something. This pretty much concludes the first introductory video, just working with the user interface. For the next video, we're going to look at creating some sketches. So this is essentially the building block for any decent solid model.